Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our course orientation. Today, we will be looking at the Advanced Diploma of Human Resource Management, BSB60320. My name is Tim Stalker. I'm one of the course advisors here at Let Training. Joining me today, I have one of our senior trainers, Ray McCall. Ray, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure completely, Tim. Thank you for the opportunity.
No worries. So just before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. If you do have any questions regarding the course, feel free to ask them. We do have course advisors in chat who will be happy to help you out with that. Alternatively, we will be pausing the orientation at a couple of moments. So that way, if you do have any questions, you can ask them then. If the questions do require a bit more of an in-depth answer, our course advisors will be available and they'll be happy to help you out with those. They may just ask to take your email or your contact number. And so that way they can contact you after the orientation and give you a bit more of an in-depth answer. Now, as we've said today, we will be looking at the Advanced Diploma of HR Management. This is a level 6 qualification under the Australian Qualifications Framework. Now, Ray, it's important to distinguish the difference between the Advanced Diploma and the previous qualifications before it. When we're talking Advanced Diploma, we're talking about long-term business strategies, decisions that affect business-wide culture and evolution. Is that correct?
That's correct, Tim. It is very much conceptually positioned at a strategic, big picture level for an organisation. And from a contextualisation at a pitching level, if we make the comparison to level 4, certificate 4 presumes that you have the ability to do the do, that you can engage in all of the HR functions and processes at an operational level. By contrast, level 5 is the expectation that you can manage the HR function for a business unit or an organisation on a day-to-day basis with involvement in continuous improvement to ensure that your policies, procedures, systems and practices are appropriately up to date and best practice, as it were. Moving then to the level 6, as you say, is taking that one step further and being able to look at how the various HR facets can be strategized to move the business forward. And that can range from engaging in workforce planning and being able to workforce plan or develop a workforce plan for the next 3 to 5 years, being able to develop and deploy your industrial relations strategy for similar longer term timeframes.
Fantastic. So it is important to know that it is a step up from Certificate 4 and Diploma level study. And the reason for that is because there are entry requirements on this particular course, just like the Diploma of HR. However, the Advanced Diploma of HR's entry requirements are a little bit more specific, and we'll just go through those now. So on the left-hand side here, we see completion of previous qualifications. If you've previously studied a Diploma of HR Management, there is the possibility that will meet the entry requirements of the course. And as we see here, we have the last 2 versions of the Diploma of HR course, BSB 50618 and the most recent one, which is BSB 50320. And down the bottom there, we have listed a superseded equivalent version. Now, Ray, I know the previous version to the 50618 was done back in 2015. That's about as far back as we would suggest, correct?
Absolutely. That would be my recommendation, given the diverse nature of change since.
Exactly. And on the right-hand side here, we have 4 years full-time work experience. Now, this is in a HR management role. And as we see here, we have 3 different pieces of evidence you may be asked to obtain. So, for example, a statement from your employer, a signed job description, or performance review reports. Now, of those, Ray, which would you say gives the best opportunity for people to meet the entry requirements of the course?
I would propose the official employer statement in conjunction with a signed job description, but making sure that the actual employer statement is very specific, that it details the role that was or were undertaken, that it indicates timeframes, that there is clear evidence of 4 years work experience in an HR management role. It refers to the wage classification qualification so that it's clearly full-time. So we're looking for full-time work experience, and also that it provides the overview of the roles and responsibilities in that management function. And that's where being corroborated with a job description or series of job descriptions to support that 4-year period definitely goes hand in hand. And in terms of the statement of those roles and responsibilities, making sure that it aligns with the outcomes of the Diploma of HR. So you're clearly specifying the required areas of HR management practice.
Fantastic. It is also important to point out that LET training does offer the Diploma and Advanced Diploma of HR as a dual course package. However, keep in mind the Diploma does have entry requirements of its own that must be met. So if you are looking to do both of those courses together, we would recommend talking to a course advisor first, and we would be able to discuss the entry requirements for the Diploma of HR course with you as well, just to ensure that you meet those so you can enroll in the particular dual course package of Diploma and Advanced Diploma. And we'll just move on now to our next section, which is on career outcomes. Now, as we see here, Ray, we have some potential outcomes for people who finish the Advanced Diploma of HR. This is by no means all of the career opportunities, though. As someone who does have a lot of dealings with our Advanced Diploma courses, what would be some other areas you suggest people would be able to get into after completing this particular course?
Absolutely. Certainly within the HR domain, working within the organisational development and organisational change or organisational transformation space is certainly aligned in this regard. But having said that, I would also see people who are looking to move into a regional role in the HR space. So you may be a people and culture manager for a particular business unit or arm of a business, and you have a corporate office arrangement where you're starting to take on an increased portfolio of responsibility. That certainly fits well within the Advanced Diploma outcomes. But having said that, moving outside the HR space, I think this is certainly a valid outcome for someone in a business unit management role. So someone who is a department head or a divisional manager in a business, to give them those insights of the importance of strategic development of human capital.
Fantastic. Now, one other thing that we get asked a lot here, right, is further study. So we have the option to provide both of these this particular Advanced Diploma of HR, along with one of our other advanced diplomas. We've got a Business and Leadership in Management. Would you say both of those are good options to study along with the HR course?
Absolutely. I would recommend both, each for particular reasons. If we talk about the Advanced Diploma of Business, this stage, the contemporary philosophy in the HR space is about business partnering. So the expectation that, claiming that seat at the table at an executive level requires the business savviness and the business capability. So an Advanced Diploma of Business is certainly, a very valid complementary qualification. Conversely, leadership and management as well, given the highly relationship-oriented, influencing negotiation, particularly in the IR and employee relations space, that a practitioner at this level is required. That leadership and management is certainly aligned in that regard. So I think either are valid complementary offerings.
Fantastic. And one other question we get asked regarding further study is people who are potentially looking to take these advanced diplomas and move on to potentially tertiary studies at university. And they ask whether it could meet entry requirements or potentially even take some time off of future courses. Now, as a general rule of thumb, we would say always talk to the campus you're looking to enroll in. Yeah, exactly right. But some of them also have tools on their website, I believe, where people can enter the qualifications that they've obtained, and they would be able to see if they count toward entry requirements or if they would remove any of the potentially early units of those courses. Would you agree with that, Ray?
That's right. It really is, idiosyncratic to the higher education provider, but there are opportunities for what they refer to as advanced standing, particularly coming from these high-level vet qualifications, where it impacts is potentially the amount of time that you're given credit for or advanced standing for, and again it depends on the actual undergraduate qualification that you're seeking to enroll in. But certainly a common situation, and often there are articulation arrangements on the part of universities to accept these qualifications.
Fantastic. And as we always say, talk to the campus before you make any decisions. But we are a nationally recognized training provider, and it is a nationally recognized course, so that should help you out as well. And we'll move on to our next section now, which is on the course outline. And as I just said, this is a nationally recognized qualification. So there are several skills here. We have functional skills on the left, and we have professional skills on the right. Now, Ray, one thing I'd just like to draw your attention to those professional skills over there. Now, having a look at these, people who are involved in high-level HR, a lot of the times I get asked about is that last unit there, ensure a safe workplace for a work area. And people will almost invariably say, well, isn't that what a WHS team is for? Is this a unit that's really necessary for people who are doing high-level HR? Would you say that it's an important role?
Without a doubt, it's a critical unit to adopt, and I think people are deluded if they're not aware of the legal liability that attaches them, particularly at the higher level as officers within an organisation under work health and safety legislation. So, one, from a risk management and risk minimisation point of view, but also from the point of view of strategically moving the business forward. This is a major regulatory and legislative framework that everything needs to sync with, and if you don't understand it as a practitioner as equally potent as the industrial relations framework, then it may prove problematic at being able to, essentially move forward at a strategic level.
Exactly right. Now, one thing you've brought up a couple of times, Ray, is strategies. And we see there over in functional skills, we have development of employee and industrial relations strategies, strategic workforce planning, even leading organizational change there would require strategies. Having a look at this course, Ray, where would you suggest people who are starting the course begin their studies? As it's self-guided, where would you recommend people start from?
Look, and again, I'm hesitating a little because it's very idiosyncratic to the individual, particularly from the background and their areas of capability and interest. Looking at the HR related units, so that's the latter four. So let's leave aside finance and critical thinking. I would recommend either the organizational performance development, because PD tends to be an area that people have a large degree of exposure to. Similarly, there's potential for having engaged in organizational change within an organization, but mindful that at this level the units are much more conceptual. I'm backing away from starting immediately on the IR and the strategic workforce planning, because those are areas that are highly conceptual and really do require robust underpinning knowledge and I guess tenacity in terms of approaching it. Putting together an industrial relations strategy is quite complex. So for someone looking for a smoother transition, I would go contribute to organisational PD or lead and manage organisational change. Same thing applies in terms of the organisational finances. Working with people tends to be the dichotomy between people who get it and love the finance side of things, given that this particular unit requires you to develop a budget for an organisation and then design a variance report based on information provided and present that report to the board. So there are those who feel comfortable with finance and numerics, and then there are those who are potentially a little bit more fearful or reticent. So again, based on where you're coming from, either park that unit a little bit later, or it may be one that you want to kick off with because it aligns very much with your skill set.
Exactly right. And that's one of the real benefits of our course, because it is 100% self-guided. You can start wherever you like. So you can always ask the trainer for their suggestions, but alternatively, if there's a unit that you're familiar with, if it's something you're comfortable with, we would always recommend that that's probably the best one to start with. And we'll just move on. Actually, we'll just take a moment, see if there are any questions that we can help with in chat. There doesn't appear to be. So we'll move on to our next section, which is on the facilitation model. Now, as we've just discussed, the course is 100% self-paced. It is also 100% self-guided, and it is nationally recognized. It is 100% online as well. So you are able to log in anywhere, provided you are on a desktop or laptop computer, no smart devices, just a desktop or laptop computer. But you can log in from anywhere. We have had people who have completed courses such as this in remote areas of Australia doing fly-in, fly-out work. We've also had people as members of the Defence Force finish courses of ours before. We've also had people who are currently working overseas who are able to study in Australia that have completed their courses with us. One important thing to keep in mind is trainer availability. Trainers are available from 9 to 5:30 Monday to Friday, Sydney local time. So if you are in a different time zone or if you are overseas, you will need to adjust accordingly when booking in support sessions. That's an important thing to keep in mind. We also supplement the resource material that you will be able to access via the online learning platform. We supplement that with regularly scheduled webinars. This is an interactive component to your study. Now, Ray, as someone who has done a lot of webinars, especially concerning HR, what are some of the webinars relating to the advanced diploma course that you've done recently?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just flag that we adopt a two-pronged approach in terms of the webinars. One prong focuses on unpacking the assessment requirements, and we'll talk about that in a moment, the assessment side of things. So these are webinars which walk the candidate through or the learner through all of the elements, the tasks, the subtasks, so they're left in no doubt as to what's required to be able to demonstrate their competency in respect of the assessment. The second prong or suite are topic related. So inform the subject matter around which they're studying. And from an HRM point of view, excuse me, I conduct quarterly workplace relations reviews. So what's happening in the industrial relations space. And at this particular point in time, 2023 is shaping up as transformative for the Fair Work Act, mindful of the amendments that were passed in November 2022. And I'll continue to do those quarterly reviews, given that there are milestones for introduction of various amendments. Others, I've just recently facilitated a webinar on becoming and maintaining status as an employer of choice. So looking at conceptually and pragmatically what an employer of choice is, with focus on employer brands and employer branding and developing and promoting employee value propositions, for example. And then other webinars around the likes of what is the distinction between organisational change and organisational development, because often people have a very conflated view of those two key concepts. So a range very much pitched at that higher level strategic conceptual thinking.
Fantastic. Now, these webinars can be viewed live. We will provide you with details if any of the upcoming webinars relate to this particular course. You can follow along live and you can ask trainers questions during those webinars. Now, alternatively, what you can do is you can watch them later. We will always send you links for webinars that have been completed, and you can watch those at your leisure. The important thing to point out is they do not incur any additional fees, either viewing live or viewing the webinars later on. And another thing that doesn't incur fees, additional fees at LET training, is your support services. Now, as you see here, you will be assigned a tutor or a trainer who will be there to support you through your studies with us. And you are able to obtain support via a number of different methods. Most people will choose to email their trainers questions. One rule of thumb we always have is it's better to ask 5 questions in one email as opposed to asking 5 questions across 5 emails. This is because the trainers will respond within 1 to 2 business days. And if you send all your questions in one email, you will get all the answers at one time instead of waiting for each individual email to be responded to. So it's always better to put all of your questions into one email and send them through all at once. Support services can also include support sessions completed over Zoom. These normally take 30 minutes. They are done face-to-face, and you need to book those in a couple of days in advance, either with your trainer or with our admin team. Now, Ray, as someone who has done a lot of support sessions, what would you say is the one bit of advice you would give to people before they book in their session? What would you say is the one thing people need to remember?
I'll take 2 bites in that regard,
Go
Tim.
for it, no problem.
One, be prepared. Know exactly what you want to get out of the session. So arm yourself with an overview of questions, issues, and with that, have with you all of the supporting materials that you're going to refer to. So if you expect, the assessor to talk you through subtask 4 of task 2 of unit BSBS US 601, have it there so you can refer to it and clarify. So be prepared, be targeted, because the 30 minutes will go very quickly. The other is from a very basic housekeeping point of view. Ensure that you have no distractions whatsoever, that it is, I guess, frustrating for you as the learner if you're distracted from tapping into the insights, and also as someone providing that, if the learner is getting up and making dinner or moving around and attending to other people, or driving, heaven forbid, driving in a car at the time, it's exceptionally distracting. So you're not going to get the proverbial bang for your buck in terms of that support session. So they're the 2 priorities as far as I'm concerned.
They're great answers, Ray. One thing we will also point out, it is probably illegal to be doing a support session while driving. So if you're going to be in your car, please make it stationary. Just something to keep in mind. The trainer who you will have, or your tutor, will also probably be your assessor. They will be marking the majority of your assessments. And we will jump on to assessments in just a moment, but it's an important thing to point out that your assessments will be marked and returned within 5 business days. In the event your assessment isn't considered competent, that's fine. Your trainer will always give you feedback, and you can have another attempt straight away. Additional assessment attempts do not incur additional fees. That's an important thing to keep in mind as we move on to our next section, which is specifically on assessment attempts. Now, as we see here in front of us, we have an example of one of the assessment tasks for this course. This specific one comes from Unit BSB HRM 614. Now, there are 2 separate assessments to each unit. The first is a series of knowledge-based short answer questions. Don't worry, we're not going to be asking for pages and pages and pages of essays. They're going to be broken down into short answers that relate directly to your resource material. This is done so that trainers are aware that, yes, you have read through your resource material and that you understand it. The other assessment for each of these units is a practical project. Now, these can take on a variety of different areas, but the ones specifically for this are more likely to be interactive tasks with your trainer. Now, Ray, as someone who has done a lot of these assessments, what are some of the tasks we're going to be asking people to complete?
Yeah, and actually, if you zero your attention in onto the task overview in the center at the bottom of the screen there, you'll see 2 clear examples. One is facilitate a consultation meeting with the managing director, and the other is to likewise organise a meeting to consult with other stakeholders on a proposed strategic plan and implementation action plan. So meeting facilitation is a classic one, particularly at level 6, and the expectation is that you're able to influence upwards. You are exceptionally knowledgeable about what you're proposing, in this case the labour market analysis that you've undertaken and the strategic plan, and that you can respond to questions that an MD or a CEO would fire at you in response to your initiative, such that it's really demonstrating your ability not only to communicate knowledge, but to influence upwards and horizontally with peers, and also negotiate outcomes, negotiate an approval for a workforce plan that will address the organisational needs for the next 3 to 5 years. Others may be a presentation, so you're delivering a presentation, communicating and promoting some of your strategic documentation to a group of stakeholders, as it were. But as I say, at this level, it's predominantly facilitating infrastructural tool meetings.
Fantastic. And again, just to reiterate that if these assessments aren't completed on the first attempt, that's fine. Your trainer will always give you feedback, and then you can have another attempt free of charge thereafter. So if you're not competent first time, don't worry about it. You've always got those other opportunities ahead of you. And we'll move on now to our next section, which is on other assessment pathways. So as well as completing those assessments we just discussed, there are other ways with which you can finish the course. The first one we have here is credit transfers. Ray, when we're discussing credit transfers, we're talking about a previous study of a vet course. Is that correct?
That's correct. That you've got not only studied, but you have an competency outcome, competency achieved on a statement of attainment issued by another registered training organisation for a unit within, as you say, the vocational education and training sector. So it's apples for apples, and that unit needs to be, if it is an earlier version, superseded and equivalent. Often the units will be deemed non-equivalent, or the old unit will be deleted, in which case credit transfer is not within the realm of possibility. So again, apples for apples, and current needs to demonstrate currency. So often people will dig up something from 2007 and 2008. Currency really is within the last 3-5 years, pushing it, as it were. The other thing I flag here is credit transfer, and it zeroes in on that vet aspect, that often I get approached by people who've undertaken undergraduate or postgraduate studies in universities and wanting to get credit for like-named units, like they've done Introduction to Financial Management at uni. That doesn't fit within the vet sector and the standards for RTOs from an automatically credit transfer point of view.
Right. That would be more along the lines of RPL, which we'll get into in just a moment. But just to go back to credit transfers for a second, you can complete a credit transfer assessment prior to enrolment. All you need to do is submit your transcripts. This can be either from the institute you studied at or from USI. It would take a trainer roughly 1 to 2 business days to complete that assessment, after which time they would be able to advise you where there is the potential of credit transfers. There are no additional fees for a credit transfer assessment, but this is different to an RPL assessment, which would not only include studies potentially completed at university, as Ray just mentioned, but also skills developed in the workplace, correct?
That's correct. So RPL really is all about demonstrating capability through workplace-based evidence. And to give you an example, if you're looking for, RPL for the lead and manage organizational change, you would need to submit a curated portfolio of appropriately redacted and de-identified from a confidentiality point of view, evidence items that align with all of the unit requirements. So that could range from organizational change plans that you've drafted, distributed, consulted on, revised, had approved, and then revised in situ, action plans for organizational change, communication plans, similar, project plans around it, feedback analyses, benchmarking activities that you've undertaken to do a baseline of where the organization's at, to then use as a reference point for measurements for your monitoring system moving forward. All of those things that you would have at your disposal if you've done or engaged in organizational change in a business sense. So the onus is on you to develop that evidence to prove that you have that capability.
Fantastic. Now, this assessment can be commenced prior to enrolment. This is done through a consultation with one of our senior trainers. We would recommend providing a job description and an up-to-date resume prior to this consultation. After that, the trainer would be able to advise you of potential areas of RPL. After enrolment, your own dedicated trainer or tutor would then be able to provide you with an RPL kit that provides you with the specific pieces of workplace evidence you will need to obtain and essentially put together. Now, when you submit this portfolio, there is a fee that will be incurred. That does vary based on the number of units you are seeking RPL for, and we would always recommend speaking to your trainer or to the admin team or even to the course advisors regarding those fees prior to submitting the evidence. One other option that we have listed there is gap training. Now, gap training, right, that is when most of an assessment has been completed or most of a unit has been completed, but there are some competencies that still need to be met. Is that correct?
That's correct. Completed through that RPL pathway or avenue. So it may be that according to the unit specifications, the elements and performance criteria, you can meet 2/3 of the requirement. Let's say as an example that there may be then a partial recognition of prior learning outcome awarded, but to address that third where we've identified the gap that you haven't engaged in it, you haven't developed the skills and you can't evidence, that we then provide you with the learning support materials and an assessment task to demonstrate your competency. And then when you have successfully completed that gap assessment task, the combination of the outcome from that activity and your partial RPL results in an overall competency outcome for the unit.
Fantastic. And we'll just move on now to our next section, which is on support services. Now, we have touched on support services quite a few times, but just to clarify, you are able prior to enrolment to discuss your potential enrolment with the course advisors. You can contact us by phone there at 0296333929. Our office hours are Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That is Sydney time. You are also able to email any questions you might have to our email address there, enquire@lettraining.com.au. And you can also inquire about our Facebook groups. We have a series of groups available for people who are enrolled in Certificate 4, Diploma and Advanced Diploma courses. They are more used for peer support. However, you may be able to ask some questions prior to enrolment as well. We'll move on to our next section just quickly, which is on enrolment. Now, if after listening to this orientation, you've decided to enroll in the course, that's fantastic. There are a few ways by which you can do that. First off, you can enroll via our website. There is the link to the Advanced Diploma of HR's course information page. If you click that and go to that page, you are looking for this Enroll Now button. It is directly underneath our nationally recognized training logo there. Clicking on that will take you to the enrolment section, and it shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to complete the necessary form. Alternatively, you can choose to complete the enrolment form. These are attached to the course information packs that we send out to you by email. It is the only Word document that is normally attached to those emails. All you need to do is fill that form out. You don't even need to print it out. You can complete it on your computer and email it back to us. Now, either way, we receive your enrolment, whether it is via the website or whether it is via form. They will be processed within 1 business day normally, and you will receive your login details within 1 business day as well. If you do have any questions or if you need any assistance in enrolling, you can always call the course advisors. Our number there again is 0296333929. Now, when enrolling in the course, you may choose to use one of our payment plans. We have some examples of potential payment plans there. As we see, we have a couple of options. First off, weekly, fortnightly, and monthly payment plans. Alternatively, you can choose to pay half upfront and then half within 30 or 60 days. Important thing to point out is that all of these payment plans do have an upfront installment, which will be taken at enrolment. Also, most of these do come with an admin fee. Now, whether you choose to enroll online or you're using an enrolment form, the admin fees are very clearly noted on those forms. So if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to get in contact with us. We'll always be happy to help there. And we'll just move on now to our next section, which is we're going to open the floor up for any questions from chat. We'll just see if there are any questions from any people viewing the orientation. There doesn't appear to be at this point. So with that, we'll start to wrap things up here. If you do have any questions after viewing this orientation, you can email the course advisors. There is our email address, enquire@lettraining.com.au. Our phone number is there as well again, 0296333929, or you can ask our questions on Facebook. Our Facebook is there @lettraining1. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Ray for his time this morning. Thanks a lot, Ray. It's greatly appreciated.
My pleasure completely, Tim, and I look forward to welcoming new learners to Let Training and supporting their program progress and success.
Fantastic. So this has been the orientation for the Advanced Diploma of Human Resource Management, BSB60320. My name is Tim Stalker. I'm one of the course advisors here at Let Training. And with that, we will finish up the orientation now. Thank you very much for your attention and your attendance, and have a great day.